What's up, guys? Hello from quarantine land from Thailand, and I'm sure most of you or all of you are joining me in this. So, in order to pass the time, we've all watched Tiger King. That was amazing. But now I have two other stories to share with you all. It's the story of my two bites in honor of April 4th, because well, not most of you, but many of you will know that April 4th is not my lucky day. It's actually the day I hit the jackpot for being bit by venomous snakes. We have the Malayan pit viper bite in 2014, and then the monocled cobra bite in 2015. Exactly the same day, 1 year apart. And before I dive into all this, no, it wasn't from freehandling. I know, shocker, right? Let's dive into the first story, the Malayan pit viper bite of 2014. Now, during this time, I was one of the younger venom extractors at the snake farm. And one morning, I was, on my way to milk snakes as usual. And this routine would go on like every weekend, you know. I'm used to milking Malayan pit vipers. I've milked about, I think, 10 or so, but most of them are only about this long. I'm not used to milking one that was this long, about 5 feet long, a Malayan pit viper. The head was about that size. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I do keep them and they do get pretty big. I just didn't anticipate the power of a snake like that size has. So when I had to pin her, she turned around and just nagged me right in my finger. This is the scar, what it looks like right now to this day. Hopefully the camera gets this. Now this is 6 years after that bite, and no, it will never heal to what it looked like normally. This is the full extent, or almost full extent. The fingernail you see here is pretty damaged and broken down, but this is the product after 4 other nails that have dropped off or melted off over the year. Anyway, so she bit me on the finger and I heard the loud crunch. Well, actually I can still remember exactly how it felt like. It was terrifying. After that bite, I was like, oh my gosh, am I gonna die? Am I gonna lose my hand, my finger, let alone my arm? So right after that, I tried to stay calm as possible. And no, I did not tie the bite area down. This is one thing I also want to talk about when you're dealing with venomous snakes, especially venomous snake bites. So if a hemotoxic or let's say necrotic snake bites you, you do not want to tie that bitten area down, especially if it's like the finger or the hand, because what you want to do is you want that venom to be able to gradually spread slowly. Pardon the dog. But anyway, so as I was saying, when you're dealing with snake bites, you are definitely gonna have to be careful in how you treat the bite itself. So what you want to do is clean it, run it through some water gently, put like a mild bandage or a wet towel, a clean one, over it, and then head to the hospital. When you get bit by a necrotic snake, like a hemotoxic, cytotoxic snake, like a Malayan pit viper, or snakes with venom that destroys the red blood cells or living tissue in general, if it bites you on the hand or bites you on the arm, what you don't want to do is tie that bite side down. You want your blood to flow. You do not want to trap all that blood inside your one finger or your hand, because what you're doing is you're allowing the venom to gradually spread through your body. You might think this is a crazy thing, but think about it for a second. Do you want all that venom, that potent venom, to soak in one finger and rot that finger, or potentially rot that finger? Or would you rather let the venom spread and perhaps you may be able to save the finger? Sure, you'll experience more pain at other sites, you'll get more swelling, and probably like some blistering or bumps, bruises in other fingers or other parts of the arm, but you have a way higher chance at saving that said limb. And when you're dealing with snakes that have neurotoxic venom that targets the heart or the central nervous system in general, you actually do want to tie that bite side down. If, let's say, a mamba bites you, I don't know how long you have until you get to the hospital, but what you should do is rinse it with water, clean it gently, and then tie that side down. You don't want that venom spreading through your bloodstream because it's going to get to your heart faster. And it's not attacking your limb, so it's more okay to keep it there. All right, now that that's done with, back to my bite story. Once I got bit, heard the crunch, that bite, the force was so powerful, it probably was why she didn't envenomate me as much. Her bite went between the bone right here and actually tilted my finger a bit. That's how strong her bite force was. And I got to the hospital, it was starting to swell up. It was like I was in a ton of pain, and the doctor just goes, "This is gonna hurt, okay? 1, 2, and then he just snapped my finger back where it was. Searing pain. That whole day was searing pain. I went to the hospital, and while I was in the car getting there, my bad, I forgot to tell this part, I called them asking if they had Malayan pit viper antivenom, and they said they did. So when we got there in 15 minutes, we learned that it had expired. Whippy. I called my friend who works at the snake farm. He came along with some vials of antivenom, and then I ended up waiting about 3 to 4 hours until I finally got some. And at that point, my finger was already turning purple. It was swelling, and you can tell that a lot of tissue in my said finger was dying. That's why I didn't like the hospital. Like, even when I got there, a lot of the nurses were saying, "Are you sure it wasn't a reticulated python bite?" And I'm like, my finger's purple. Reticulated pythons don't have venom. The picture I showed you is not of a reticulated python. So yeah, it took a while. Then they bandaged my finger up. I was in the hospital bed. The pain was throughout my body. It was shooting everywhere. Aches and pains was a side effect to the Malayan pit viper venom. And holy crap, my liver was working so hard to pump all this venom out of my system that every time I would go pee on the first day, I would pee blood. Now what this feels like is basically picture peeing out grains of sand over and over. And every time I had to go pee, it was like a stumble across the hospital floor. I was just limping super slowly to the bathroom at 1 a.m., then 3 a.m., 4 a.m. But the next day, thankfully, it subsided. The pain while peeing, like, I peed normally, let's just say that. But I did have to get transported on a wheelchair. Like, a nurse would push me up the car and go this and go there, switch the hospital bed, you know, stuff like that, get some fresh air. And I was at the hospital for 4 days. And now, gradually, over 6 years, this is how it is. And it'll never change. I did, however, run into that exact same snake 6 years later at the Queen Sawapa Memorial Institute, and she was coiled up right at the center of her tank, staring right back at me. Okay, so that was the Malayan pit viper venom. Now, part 2 would be the Supan monocled cobra bite of 2015, exactly 1 year apart. Now a little bit of backstory. At that stage, I was keeping squirrels. Let's say at the end of 2014, if I remember correctly, around November, December, I was keeping about 6 or 8 squirrels. And, you know, they're cute as hell. How could you say no to more squirrels and playing with them all day? But the thing is, it's not a good idea to combine squirrel keeping with venomous snake keeping, or, you know, snake keeping in general. It was not a smart plan, but they were too cute. I had to say yes. No way of saying no to cute squirrels. So April 4th, the lucky April 4th, I had a squirrel on my hands playing around, and then I had one that was like more grown up, so he was sitting on my shoulder, just like doing his own thing, cuddling up. And after like an hour or two playing with squirrels, I put them all back. And I washed my hands and washed my arms, but I did not wash my shoulder. For some reason, it didn't cross my mind. That was the biggest mistake I ever made. Later that day, I went to give some of my snakes some water, and I would pour water through some enclosure tops, but for the cobras, you had to open the tubs to pour water into their bowls. And as I went through a few cobras, and then I got to my adult male 5.5 foot Supan monocled cobra. And as I was opening his enclosure to pour water in, he shoots out of the hide all the way up here, and then he sniffs. And I was thinking, oh, this must be defensive behavior. He probably won't bite me if I don't do anything, if I don't move and stay calm. Turns out the snake actually sniffed out the squirrel, and he was in, the crazy feeding response that all cobras have that makes them a cobra. He comes out right before I react or anything. He just takes a chomp right here. I know you can't see it, but I will provide pictures or video later. But he takes a chomp at my shoulder, and I thought to myself, wow, okay, I'm screwed. No way I can tie down my shoulder to stop the blood from flowing to my nervous system, my heart. So I sat on I put the snake back into the tub and closed everything up, sat on my chair for about 10 minutes, just pondering like what I'm doing with life, and just like, what am I gonna do? Do I just like sit here and wait for the venom to take effect and die? Because who knows how soon that was gonna come. But as I said, it from 1 minute to another turned into 10 minutes of sitting there, and I'm like, I just now start to feel an itch. So maybe it wasn't as serious of a bite as I thought. Since it was a giant snake and I thought he dumped a whole load of venom in there, I was gonna be screwed. But I went to the hospital right away after I felt like some symptoms of the venom sinking in. I got there in 15 minutes. It was the same hospital now, and this time I made sure they damn had that anti-venom on hand. I got the anti-venom in 2 hours, but before that time, I did start to feel dizzy and see double vision after 1.5 hours. And then all of a sudden I started to just like drift away, like black out. But you don't just black. Let me demonstrate by saying this would be the bed, the hospital bed that I was laying on. This would be me. And then after seeing everything in double, like 2 of my mom, 2 of my dad, 2 of like the doctors and nurses and the equipment, I started to like sink down through the bed, and it just felt like I was falling, and everything around me was dark apart from this bed. Like it was a door, like I just fell through this door into darkness. And then what felt like the longest 5 to 15 seconds of my life, I slowly just drifted back up, and then sprang out of bed like, whew, what happened? Why are you all staring at me like that? And they're just like, the doctor said, I'm sure you didn't know, but your heart stopped for 6 to 7 seconds and you just came back. I was like so tired, like the venom gets you in this droopy phase. A monocled cobra's venom consists of neurotoxins, primarily cytotoxins and myotoxins, as well as destroying some tissue, which, as you can see, it didn't. It was mainly neurotoxic, which I received. For the monocled cobras in general, the supans are actually more toxic in the neurotoxic department. That must have sounded a bit complicated, but yes. Now, I woke up and the doctor just told me that they brought me back and that I should suffer no side effects apart from one major thing, which was cardiotoxicity. Now what this was is that my heart chamber in my heart could no longer pump blood at the same pace as it used to. So I have a weaker heart. And during the first weeks to months, I would develop severe pains, just like at the heart, especially when I would be laying down, or especially when I worked out. So the doctor told me not to overwork my body, or like if I overworked it too hard, it could turn into cardiac arrest. So I could end up having a heart attack from overworking my body. That's extremely scary, and a huge price to pay for being an idiot. You know, it was a mistake. And in this hobby or passion or lifestyle, whatever you may call it, it can be quite unforgiving at times. One mistake can lead to an amputated arm or loss of a finger. Plenty of people in this field have their own scars to prove that. And I don't see this as like a war brand or battle scars or anything, but whenever I look down at my finger or I take a peek at my shoulder, I just get reminded of being extremely irresponsible, like how big my gigantic stupid ego was, that I was some 18-year-old kid who kept all these venomous snakes and had the respect of some elders here. I was trained how to work with my snakes, of course, and I felt like, yeah, I'm doing a lot of things right. This is so great. But then when you're in that mind state, you easily forget the essential things you have to be focused on while working with venomous snakes. You know, they're not toys. You can't take them for like inanimate objects. They're a living, breathing organism with their own mind, and each animal behaves differently. I got bit twice, sure. Was it the animal's fault? No, never. One cobra was going with a feeding response, and the Malayan pit viper bit out of defense, and she didn't even envenomate me that much. Both of them, actually. The cobra, the doctor said there was not a lot of venom in me, but it was enough to cause that much damage. If it was a full load, I would have been in serious condition, or I could have died. My cobra was extremely used to eating frozen thawed meals. So I'm pretty sure he just sniffed me and thought, oh, frozen thawed meal, and took a bite. That's why the bite was so gentle. It wasn't a strong strike at all. Now anyway, these two bites left me with a lot of scars and a lot of memories, but it is a good warning sign. I can always look down here and remind myself, yo dude, remember what stupidity gets you? This is what it gets you. And I might seem harsh to like the new upcoming keepers of this venomous community, because they're like, oh, Chris is so young and he can do this and he can do that. And I'm like, yeah, but I've gone through absolute hell from doing these irresponsible things. And no, I'm not trying to tie this with free handling, nor do I justify free handling, that it is safe, it's not safe. But that's a completely different video, which will come out sometime later, I'm sure. This video, however, focuses on both of my bites. And as for advice for new keepers, I just say, be as focused, as calm as you can be. Find a mentor. It is not a competition. The only one you're racing with in keeping all these animals or working with them is yourself. No one out there is competing with you, so you don't have to rush into this. You have plenty of time. You have years ahead of you that you can just keep reading and watching experts handling and doing their thing. I quit milking snakes, I quit pinning vipers in general after all that, and I just leave it to the professionals. I'm happy keeping animals and taking care of my own animals, trying to get them to not see me as a threat at all. Sure, some are extremely defensive. I don't free handle everything I keep, obviously. And I do use hooks. I do use protective gloves when necessary. So yeah, for advice, final advice anyway, be careful. Take your time. Focus. Keep calm. Always pay attention to the snake. Learn the animal's behavior. Know exactly what you're getting into when you're working with these amazing animals. Because a little cute gaboon viper is going to grow into this 6-foot behemoth that strikes faster than lightning. So you be careful. A lot of people in the community just want to sell their stock. They don't really mind who they're selling it to. Just do your own research as much as you can. When you're confident, then sure, go for it. Just be careful, because in this unforgiving hobby, one mistake can be your last. So that's all I'm gonna leave you guys with today. If you have any further questions or you want to follow me on Instagram, the link to my page is down in the description. Comment what you think about this video and I'll try to get to all your comments and answer whatever it is on your mind. So see you in the next video, guys, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.